take a live look at some of the numbers coming out right now. The North American stock market started this trading day in the red, giving up some of the gains made by yesterday's historic surge. Now, that surge was one of the biggest market rallies since the Second World War. It happened mere moments after the U.S. president's announcement that he was temporarily hitting the pause button on his latest round of tariffs for dozens of nations, including our own. However, there is no reprieve for China. It now faces a 125% duty on all exports to the United States. But how is the Trump administration moving forward today after yesterday's surprise reversal? For more on that, we turn to CBC's Katie Nicholson in Washington.
This morning, White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett was out doing all of the morning shows, really promoting the line that this U-turn was all a part of the plan, and that they might have actually been close to making that announcement yesterday, even without President Trump saying that people were starting to feel the yips from the bond markets, right? So Hassett said that countries are now lining up to negotiate. He's got about 15 countries, he says, which have made explicit offers, and that there is a big inventory of deals that are right close to the finish line. That is a direct quote from Kevin Hassett. Here's a little bit more of what he had to say.
One of the options that the president was considering before he decided to go the way he did yesterday was to announce some deals that are already so far along that we could pretty much finish them up and make them public. But in the end, he decided that a more general announcement, the one that he made yesterday, was the best way to let everybody understand that he's 100% serious about putting American workers first and making the trade deals happen as fast as possible.
So Hassett also says in the next 3 to 4 weeks, there's going to be a lot of world leaders in and out of the White House, and he insists that this is going to be a very fast process. But it really is hard to put into perspective how much of a massive undertaking this is during this 90-day trade pause, or tariff pause, I should say. Trade agreements can be really complex. They have to renegotiate terms with dozens and dozens of countries. There's going to be lawyers involved and trade representatives, all to try to ink and then implement those deals. So a lot of work ahead of them. Stephen Mirren, another top economic advisor to the president, was also out in front of the cameras this morning. He told CNBC that these policies are keeping inflation at bay, and he had this to say about the tariff pause.
What the president and his team have done is to buy time to create very great trade deals that will be very intricate and do enormous things for the American economy and American workers, and to create time to make those trade deals. And we've got dozens and dozens of countries banging down the doors wanting to talk to us, wanting to create those trade deals.
Now, to be clear, buying time, well, they're buying time against tariff policies that the president himself imposed that rolled in on Wednesday night. So kind of, I guess, a fancy way of dancing around the fact that this is a bit of a self-imposed thing. Now, all of this is happening right now as most of the world has about a 10% tariff slapped on it. That was the minimum tariff that was announced last week. And as these negotiations are happening, the president is still threatening even more tariffs on pharmaceuticals. So a really potent reminder that the sector-by-sector trade war is still very much on.
Absolutely. Well, Katie, so many eyebrows were raised when that pharmaceutical possibility came out in the news. We do need to, in our attempts to try and clarify as much as possible, the U.S. tariffs on some Canadian imports are going to remain in place. Things like steel and aluminum, any of the Canadian-made parts of an automobile that are not CUSMA compliant, all of that is in place. And on top of that, we're getting a fresh warning being launched by another member of the Trump administration. What are the details there?
Yeah, so this came from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick yesterday because Canada essentially stands alone among the G7s right now with retaliatory measures. I point to our auto tariffs on the U.S. auto sector that kicked in after midnight Wednesday. So Lutnick had this to say, and it's really sort of in the, I guess, in comparison or thinking about China as well. And it was sort of coming out of a conversation about countries that continue to pursue retaliatory measures. Here is Howard Lutnick.
If Canada decides to keep their retaliatory move, which I would suggest, having watched how it went with China, would be a really, really bad choice. Canada, they're in an election, so you never know. Maybe it's all election, bluster, but we don't know. But the fact is, if they put those tariffs on, we're going to be talking in the Oval Office, and he's going to respond. So I hope they choose to refrain.
No signs. Ottawa is changing course here, but I would point that Flavio Volpe, who, in addition to being the president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, is on the Prime Minister's Canada-U.S. Relations Council. He pushed back on Lutnick's comments yesterday. Here's Flavio Volpe.
Typical Trump administration. So I think Canada's done something really reasonable. What we've turned around and said was, we counseled the Prime Minister to do something surgical. We don't have the same amount of leverage that they do.
And Natasha, just want to end here talking about the U.S. and China, because, of course, they've just been hitting each other with enormous tariffs, one after the other. U.S. Sort of China tariffs now 125, China's tariffs on the U.S. 84%. Despite all of these enormous numbers, the president last night saying he believes there will be a deal with China. He is open to negotiating, to talking to the president. And China saying today that the door for dialogue is open, but it's stressing that America needs to show China some respect.
Katie Nicholson in Washington. So Katie's able to give us a sense of how the decision-making is kind of unleashing at the White House, but we really do want to try and understand where the markets are right now. How are the various indexes in Asia, Europe, and here in North America responding at this very moment? For that, we turn to CBC's business host, Scott Peterson, who's here in studio once again. So Scott, so far, not seeing the kind of enthusiasm we had sort of anticipated today. What are you seeing?
No, we're seeing more confusion in these markets. And yes, boy, that 90-day reprieve for imposing those tariffs was joyfully received by the markets. But we're not seeing that double effect this morning. Let's take a live look as far as what we are looking at, because yesterday's markets, my goodness, a 10% pop by the S&P. We had the Dow Jones up as well, the TSX up 1,200 points. And now we're seeing a lot of that coming off the table this morning as well. So it was a one-hit wonder, you could say, just yesterday. But the reality now is the markets are looking at, well, what's going to happen after 90 days? So we've got lots of worry there, and business investment is slowing. We know that. Global trade is slowing as well. The U.S. Federal Reserve, for example, is reluctant to lower rates because of worries about inflation. And we're also looking at an echo effect as well. I don't know if we've got overseas markets as well, but they are bouncing to the upside based on that rally from yesterday in North America. There we've got some of the Asian stocks with the Nikkei exchange up 9% for Japanese stocks. And we've also got the European exchanges closing pretty much near their highs as well. But that is not what's happening today with the markets. They are looking again to say that, well, what have we gained in the last 24 hours other than maybe 90 days of more confusion before those tariffs are imposed yet again? We've got the markets are still lower than they were last Wednesday's announcement with the tariff for the reciprocal tariffs. And also still more questions than are answers for these markets.
And there was this decision made by the president, or at least the announcement made by Donald Trump in the middle of the trading day. And that's raised a few concerns. It's raised a few eyebrows. And now there's this growing questioning about maybe his actions and who's been around him. There needs to be some sort of investigation, or at least some sort of probe into this. Yeah, there's a look at what's going on with these markets, what's behind the decisions. I mean, Donald Trump has said, this decision came from the heart, and that he had pressure from bond traders because yields were rising there. So there's a lot of different reasons that what Donald Trump is saying. But nonetheless, that we looked at this together when Donald Trump at 9:37 after the market opened saying now is the time to buy with his initials DJ. That's his personal stock trading symbol, and those shares up 22% during the trading day. Here's the S&P 500, and right after that 1:30 announcement with the tariff reprieve, we saw the markets really spiking up. So the question being is, if you had information 5 minutes before that announcement, who might be benefiting from that? And here's Adam Schiff, Democrat, asking that very question. Is this market manipulation?
Someone is knowing about these events in advance, and they may have an hour to know, or they may have a day, but someone knows. And the question is, are they trading on that information? Are they profiting while people's retirement savings are on fire? Are people in the administration making money out of it? So a very interesting question on that. And unlike the 1987 crash, unlike the 2008 financial correction, where there's a whole flurry of things that went wrong for those markets to tank, we're seeing now the effects really from one person, and that's Donald Trump. Okay, we'll keep watching. CBC Scott Peterson. Thanks so much, Scott.